Hi there. So, I have started on my May reading of Tanith Lee's Red as Blood, or Tales from the Sisters Grimmer, and of course it's a door, beautifully illustrated and donated to my collection by Rob from Outer Space. Thank you, Rob. So, yes, fantastic image, the Tales from the Sisters Grimmer. And indeed it will be, because Tanith Lee can do the Grims. Okay, so as well as that gorgeous cover art by Michael Whelan, we've got a number of illustrations on the inside that were done by Tanith Lee herself. I didn't know until fairly recently that she was also an artist, but there's a few where you've got these gorgeous illustrations that she has contributed. Red as Blood is a series of short stories, the tales in question. There are 9, and with my normal attitude towards short story collections, I'm reading them randomly. Hopefully I'll be reading and discussing some of them with Chris from Liminal Spaces, but he's a busy lad, who knows. I have started with the third story in the collection. It's called Thorns, and each one of them has brackets underneath the title indicating where they're meant to be situated. Thorns is indicated as being Eurasia, the 15th century. It's not a large story. I think it's slightly less than 10 pages. And it is Tanith Lee, so it's amazing. It was almost sunset when he met the dark woman on the road. He'd been travelling for most of his 18 years across the dry orange lands in the west, the plains and green forests in the east, and in wide-sailed ships on the back of uneasy, spiteful seas. So he encounters this woman on the road, and she's clearly a sorceress or something weird. She tells him not to continue on to the valley. He asks her why not. She says, "There's something there I'd rather you didn't see." He does continue on to the valley, no spoilers there. And he finds a huge deserted, ruined city, and when he moves out of it, he stays the night with he stays the night in this tiny little huddle of a village in which he slowly realizes that there's nothing sharp. There's no needles, there's no metal knives, there's a stone axe. The people aren't wearing woven clothing. And so the reader comes to realize that we're talking about a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. The next morning he leaves the village and he goes back to the city, and he climbs it to the center where it looks like there's some sort of vegetative patch, maybe a park, but no, it's this huge thing of thorns, overgrown and completely covered in these thorns, in which are scattered some old bones of people who've clearly tried to get in through the thorny maze. In the city, he meets the old one, who tells him the story of, not the story of how it happened, because there's only myths, but that it's been almost 100 years since the thing happened, and the old one stops him from making an attempt on the thorns because the time is not yet. It has to be 100 years after the event. And in the evening, the old one turns 100, and that's the sign that the curse can actually be lifted. So our protagonist does indeed go in there, and the conclusion is completely unlike any of the many Sleeping Beauties retellings that you or I have ever encountered, because it's Tanith Lee and she just does things differently. From the start, the fascinating thing about this is that we are actually encountering this story through the other side. Every single Sleeping Beauty story or retelling of the story that I've ever encountered, we always start with the kingdom. We always start with the curse on the girl, that the king and queen trying to defend her with the kingdom and the girl, and finally the thing that they've tried to prevent happens. She pricks her finger on a spinning something, and she falls asleep, and the palace falls under thorns, and disrepair happens to the kingdom, and everyone's frozen in time. This time, we don't really see any of that side of the story. It's all the side of the story of the young man, this wanderer, who comes in to rescue her. And the ending is as dark or darker than the beginning would be in most renditions of this story. Tanith Lee is completely violating the live happily ever after that you get from fairy tales, and this particular one is fascinating. So much of what it isn't compared to what it is in other stories. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be reading more Tanith Lee's. I suspect that each of the stories will need its own review, because I suspect that each of the stories is going to be just as unique as this one was, and I'll find a little something to talk about it. Thank you for watching. Read good books, read short stories, or possibly just go out there and read Tanith Lee, because that takes all in one.